Usually when people talk about line formations, they think about 17th-19th century, but the formation itself is pretty old and was used even in the Middle Ages. What we usually mean by it, a 2-5-man line of soldiers armed with a smoothbore, is an evolution of combined musketeer and pikeman regiments of the pike and shot era. Back in those days, muskets had less range and were more cumbersome to reload, even after inventing paper cartridges. And since there's like a century or two until the bayonets, the most reliable way to protect arquebusiers from flanking or cavalry charge was to surround them with pikemen, hence why from 15th to 17th century infantry once again began to amass in thousands. The classic stereotype about wars of that era is that guns killed pikemen. To some extent that's true, but to give them all the credit would be unfair. Two things killed the pikemen. First, artillery. Till the invention of a slow match, the most common type of artillery shot was a big ball usually made out of metal or stone, though the Ottomans also used lead. I think everyone saw it at least once. No film, game or book about that era is complete without a big gun. The role of this ball is pretty straightforward. While shells and grape shots blow upon contact and most casualties come from explosion or whatever was in them, the main strength of a round shot was in its penetrating powers. They were best used against fortifications, ships and infantry in the open. Though for max efficiency, when firing at infantry, the ideal use of a round shot was to fire just in front of the infantry and let the ball bounce up and through the formation. This is one of the reasons why armies stopped fighting in deep formations and switched to lines. And pikemen only really work in deep formations, since that's the whole point of it. Second, bayonets. Artillery, of course, was a pain in the ass, but flanking and cavalry charges were a lot more dangerous. But why waste money on two infantry types when you can combine them? A musket with a bayonet is a spear that can shoot, and once they made it so that the plug of the bayonet wasn't blocking the barrel, pikemen simply became obsolete. Somewhere in the second half of the 17th century, line infantry became a dominating force in European wars. The reasoning for this was very simple. They were easy to train. Line infantry was effective not because they were better armed, had better tactics or something like that. They were effective because you can create them from peasants in 1-2 years of training. The bigger and trained the line, the more shots it can make. The more shots it can make, the more bullets will go into the enemy. Simple logic. However, line infantry wasn't the only type of infantry out there. Line infantry was heavy infantry. Its job was to overwhelm the enemy with its firepower. Besides them, there was also light infantry and guard infantry. Depending on the country, the difference between them was either insignificant or huge. For example, in Napoleonic France, there was no difference between line and light infantry, and the role of light infantry was on voltigeurs. Meanwhile, the Holy Roman, Austria and Russia used Freikorps, Grenzers and Jägers armed with carbines and rifles as support troops for their line infantry. In many ways because carbines were lighter and rifles had more range. Why didn't they all use rifles and carbines then, you ask? Carbines are shortened muskets. The range of that weapon is abysmal, but it's good at deflecting cavalry that has to go into close quarters to be effective. Rifles, or Stutzen as they were usually called, for a long time was a more specialized weapon, hard to use. Up until 19th century, the reload speed was fairly terrible, that's one. A soldier with a musket could shoot 5 times while a soldier with a rifle was reloading. 2, most of these rifles were very finicky and prone to breaking. Because of this, light infantry regiments were usually created from experienced hunters or people living in the border regions. In other words, supplying everyone with them was counterproductive. The guard infantry, well, for all intents and purposes, it was either an elite version of the same light or line infantry, or remnants of the old units like grenadiers integrated into the army. Excluding their status, there was nothing remarkable about them.